Well, hello again, church. I'm so glad that you're here today. I don't know if you're watching on the couch or if you're on a treadmill or in a car or wherever you might be. I'm just glad to be able to connect with you today. So today, I want to talk about busy. You know, that's our answer to how we're doing, isn't it? Hey, so how are things going? What you doing? Well, I'm busy, right? And it just seems like the further along in life we go, the busier that we are, right? A matter of fact, I remember thinking back when we're a student, right? When you're a student, you're in school, you might even be working a little bit outside of school, you've got applications to fill out, teams that you're on, and you're just busy. And those years go by very, very fast. But then, once you're a student, you go and you get a job and you start your career at work, right? And you go, and one of the first things you say is, wow, I thought I was busy. Now I'm really busy. I've got this orientation I'm working on, these projects that are given to me, and I feel like I'm in over my head and I'm learning new processes, and there's all this stuff that goes along with a new career, right? And then eventually, after maybe a couple of years or whatever, you get married, and then you're like, holy smokes, I'm busier now than I ever was before, because now I've got another person to consider in my life. It's not just the stuff that I'm doing, I'm considering what they're doing as well. And oh my goodness, the holidays just got really, really complex. And then you're married for a few years, and then suddenly you start having kids, and you're like, whoa, now I'm doing everything that I was doing before, except now with no sleep at all. And so you're a little deprived during that time. And maybe you have more babies, and ultimately the kids outnumber the adults, and you're going from man to zone, and life is just getting crazy. And it just feels like the more you do, the older you get, the busier you are. And then you finally hit that empty nest stage of your life where the kids are out of the house, and for once you're not as busy, but you're just exhausted. You're tired from being so busy for so many years. I mean, wouldn't it make sense that technology, even today, would make our life easier? Matter of fact, in the early days, technology promised that this was going to make life easier, that they were going to be able to say, we're going to simplify your life. They even promised that we'd work less. I kid you not, it's written in books. And of course, we know today we work more. And we've never been able to even figure out how to shut down this situation of work and home now. And we're answering emails at 11 o'clock at night, and it's craziness, right? So add to this all the craziness of work, all the busyness of family, all the stuff that we have to do that just to be able to do life today. And then we add stuff to our schedule, right? And many times they're good things. There's things that we want to do, things that we want the kids involved in, things that we want to accomplish and do, hobbies that we want to be engaged in. But when we just constantly add more, it just begins to wreak havoc on our calendar. We end up neglecting the important things of life, like building margin into our life. And here's the tough thing. Our souls end up being depleted. And we go on vacation, but we're not really rested. All this stuff kind of happens. Now, here's the thing. This is so typical of humans. This is kind of how we go about life. We just kind of do more and more. And, you know, the big question is why? You know, why are we running the way that we run? And so maybe we can find an answer to that today, and then find a solution as well as to how we can live life less distracted. So I want to have us move to Luke chapter 10, verse 38, because Jesus himself speaks into this. He talks to a real busy and distracted person. And this busy and distracted person her name is Martha. And you might know her or have heard of her, but Martha was a sister of Mary, and then they had a brother named Lazarus. That's the same Lazarus that Jesus raised from the dead in John 11 is recorded there. So anyhow, Jesus is traveling and he's teaching, and we're going to dive right into this little moment here. It says, as Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. her sister, Mary, sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. Now, Martha and Mary, they have this brother, Lazarus, right? And they're all friends with Jesus. And so, the context of this is that Jesus would travel, he would speak in various places, people would show up because he was so amazing and he was so loving and caring. As a matter of fact, somebody once said people who were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus, right? And they were taken by him, by his teaching and by his care for people. And so here we have this scenario there. He's at this person's home. He's at Mary and Martha's home. And this was pretty common back in the day to do something like this, to have a place to land and then to just kind of teach in a situation like that. And we find Mary sitting and listening and just soaking in this teaching. So where's Martha, right? Where's Martha in this scenario? Well, Luke goes on. He said, but Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. And she came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me. So here's Martha telling Jesus what to do, right? How many of us have ever done that in our lives, right? So Martha is hosting this event, feverishly working to make everything just right for everybody. And what do we know about Martha? She is frustrated. She's so frustrated because she looks out and she sees Mary just sitting there doing nothing. So to her, Mary's being lazy. She's skipping out on the work. Martha's like, I'm doing all this stuff. And we might look at this and go, yeah, Martha's got a point, right? And so Martha goes and tells Jesus what he needs to do. So how did Martha have Jesus right there in her presence, but really fail to be in the presence of Jesus? I mean, that's a big question right there, right? Because we kind of are all siding with Martha here, but we know that Jesus is kind of turning this and he's got something to teach us here. And he's saying basically, I'm right here in your home, but you're not really engaged because you're doing a bunch of stuff. You're distracted, you're busy. And we're all thinking, yeah, because she's hosting, right? So what was going on with Martha? We might think Martha was pretty normal based upon how we live our lives, and Mary was the oddball one, but Jesus is going to flip that script on us a little bit today. So think about Martha. Martha had learned growing up that what we do is who we are, just like you and I do, right? I mean, she probably learned early on in life that our accomplishments and her accomplishments really, and her abilities define us. I mean, think about this in our own lives. People have affirmed us and spoken into us, of things that we do. They might say, man, the things that you do, or when you're able to write really well, or you take great pictures, your pictures are fantastic, or man, you have such a work ethic, you're just really, really amazing. And we've had people speak into us, telling us our strengths and what they look like. But what if the reason that you're good at something is because God made you that way, right? So when you do this, you are really good because God gave you those talents and abilities and giftedness and all that stuff. But here's where our problem lies. When people tell us that we're really good at something, we interpret it as, hey, when you do this, we really like you. We're affirming you. We really like you. That's how we hear it. We're not hearing it as God's given you these gifts and abilities. We're hearing it as like you're accepted. You're accepted in society. You're accepted amongst us because you do this really, really well. And it's kind of like mishearing lyrics of a song. We've all done that, right? Where we think we know the lyrics of the song and we're singing it, and then ultimately somebody corrects us and we can't believe that we were wrong all those times. Well, a lot of times when people speak into our lives, it just makes us feel accepted. That's just kind of uniquely human of us to do this. We feel noticed, we feel heard, we feel seen. And so a lot of times our whole identity is wrapped up in the things that we've done. So here's Martha. She'd probably been told, man, you are just an incredible host. There's nobody who puts on a spread like you do, Martha. You're doing an incredible job. And so she was excited to be able to be this person, to be able to help in this situation. And so here she is preparing this meal for Jesus. But deeply inside, this meal wasn't maybe just for Jesus. It was for her. It was because it's what she found her value in. It's just kind of how she saw that her value to the world was. And so she was so busy serving Jesus that she missed actually being with Jesus. And so what happened? She was frustrated and she snapped at the two people that she loved the most in this world. Her own sister Mary and of course Jesus. And here she is. And isn't that how that works? Are you like me that when you're tired and stressed, that you take out your frustration with those who are closest to you as well? Actually, this is very common. Behavioral psychologists call it tunneling. And what tunneling does is it limits your scope, it limits your perspective. You just see the problem. You lose, actually, they say when you're doing this, you lose IQ points. So in other words, you get dumber when you tunnel in. And guess what happens? You start making bad decisions. You say some hurtful things with your words. And the people that you love the most, you usually take it out on them. And it doesn't make any sense to do that. But that's what happens. And fair enough, Martha overloaded her life with these self-imposed expectations. I've got to make this work. And again, a lot of us would say, well, that makes sense because we're used to this. But she's saying, I've got to make this work and I've got to put these expectations on myself. But the truth of the matter is, no one put those expectations on her. Certainly Jesus didn't. I had a pastor once tell me years ago, you have just enough time each day to accomplish God's will in your life. I mean, think about that statement. God knows your capacity. God invented time. God invented the 24-hour day, the earth, the sun, how it all revolves around and how it all works. And so God has created you with the capacity to accomplish His will every day. So what if the stuff that stresses you out, that's got you frustrated, that's, you're at the end of your ropes, you're breaking apart relationships because of it. What if those stresses were actually not imposed by other people? What if they were just imposed by you? What if you put those on yourself? What if you put those expectations on yourself? So this conversation goes on. Martha's been talking. She's airing her grievances. And finally, we hear from Jesus. And in verse 41 of Matthew 10, it says, "But the Lord said to her, 'My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details, all the preparation here.' And then he says this, 'There is only one thing worth being concerned about.'" Isn't that just like Jesus? Jesus takes complexities and makes them simple. And he said, look, you're trying to do a whole bunch of things at once. You're trying to make everything work at once, but there's only one thing that's most important. And then he goes on to say this, your sister Mary, well, she's discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. In other words, you're not going to tell me what to do, Martha, and this will not be taken from her. See, Martha, again, she had busied herself to the point that she couldn't even really be in the presence of Jesus because she was busy. Yet Mary, we find, is sitting at the feet of Jesus. So just get that picture. Martha in the other room, distracted with life, Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus. That is a powerful, powerful image there. And here's the key in life. Sitting at the feet of Jesus for all of us is really a sign of humility, isn't it? You're sitting at His feet. He's there in front of you. You're humble. You're listening to Him. In other words, you're saying things like this with that posture in life. Jesus, if you say anything that confronts my way of living, my beliefs, you know what? I'm going to follow you because I'm under your words, Jesus. So the question is, are you under the words and teachings of Jesus, the person of Jesus, or are you standing over Him, telling Him what to do? We all have this daily conflict, don't we, in our lives with how we think and feel and how we were raised and our experiences. as opposed to once in a while what Jesus taught, right? So we come to grips probably on a lot of occasions with our values versus Jesus' values. You know, what we would say today, our truth versus God's truth, right? But I mean, think about it in all these areas of life. For instance, financial, right? Jesus would say, hey, everything you have is God's. He gave it to you. And, you know, true joy would be found in you just being generous, being open-handed in life. Versus how we generally look at financials. Hey, it's all mine. I earned it. My name was on the paycheck. And it's probably not enough, so I'm going to have to hang on to as much as I can. Right? Those are two varying values right there. How about when it comes to bodies and sexuality? Jesus would say, hey, sex is a gift. It's given to a married couple. Outside of that context, hey, that can be really harmful. But us today, we might say, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I want with whoever I want. I don't need to have those imposed limits, right? And so here we are. Are we sitting at the feet of Jesus, or are we standing over him telling him what to do? The same thing is true, you know, for how we see ourselves. You know, we look at the accomplishments that we've done. I am what I do. I am my GPA. I am the neighborhood I live in, the followers I have on Instagram. And Jesus is going, no, 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 no. All that stuff is making you distracted and hurried. Let me tell you who you are. You are a loved child of God. You are someone that I died for. And what Jesus would say is, I have given you already everything that you are chasing after in your life, whether it's forgiveness or grace or meaning or purpose. Jesus would say, I've given that to you already. So sitting at the feet of Jesus gives us a posture of humility to where we can learn from Jesus. And sitting at the feet of Jesus also is really, it's the only way to listen. So in another scenario, later on, Lazarus is there this time. Martha is again in the kitchen. Old habits die hard, I guess. And Mary brings in this really super expensive perfume, and she breaks it, and then she spends it all on Jesus. She's washing his feet with it. People in the room are upset. They're like, you know how expensive this perfume is? You know where this money could be going and to be used for? And they got all mad, and they started reprimanding Mary. And then again, Jesus does something that's so different from everybody else's reaction. John records it in John 12. He says, Jesus replied, leave her alone. It seems like it's a full-time job for Jesus to defend Mary. Leave her alone. She did this in preparation for my burial. That's an incredible statement right there, because you know what Jesus was saying? Mary was the only person in Jesus' life that knew that what he was going to do, knew that he was going to die. Look at what she did. It was symbolic of that. She understood it. Nobody else got it. Everybody else was completely blindsided at the crucifixion, right? She was ready. She knew what was happening. She wasn't thrilled about it, but she knew what was happening because she was listening. She was listening to Jesus. So if you want to hear from the Word of God, if you want to hear from Jesus, it's going to take you sitting at his feet to do that. Not standing above him in authority, and certainly not being distracted and continuously hurried all through life where you don't have a chance to even listen. So here's what I want to encourage you with today. You are not what you do, okay? You are not your job. You're not wherever you are on the career ladder. You are not how many followers you have on social. You are not who you parent. You are not where you live. You are not how much money you have or how little money you have. You are a loved child of God. Jesus died for you. Jesus did everything for you. He made you right with God through his sacrifice so you can have a relationship with God. Jesus has done all that heavy lifting for you in your life. His love gives you meaning and purpose. You can't find that meaning and purpose anywhere else. You are loved by him, and he tends to your deepest needs. So you don't have to find security in anyone or anything else. Years ago, David understood this, and he wrote in the most famous psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Translated today, really better, is, "The Lord is my shepherd, I have all that I need. Can you say that today? You know, today we would say this: Jesus is my King, and I have all that I need. Now think about that. You can run around busy. You can have the attitude of Martha. You can feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you have to just perform and everything has to get done through you. Or you can be like Mary and you can sit at the feet of Jesus. You can have that posture of humility, and you can also be listening to him, and you can remind yourself, Jesus, you're my King. And because of that, I have all that I need.